So many people right now motivated to do bullshit for some bull-ass reasons. But we about to put it inside of a love perspective, like love movement.
We do it all for the love, y'all. Yeah, we do it all for the love, y'all. Whether white, black, Spanish, ain't a thug, y'all. We do it, we give it all for the love, y'all. We just giving it all for the love, y'all. We do it all for the love, y'all. We in the party, put your hands up, yeah, y'all. Yeah, we do it all for the love, y'all. We do it. Love getting down and I love a cool breeze. Love seeing checks from record companies. Love, love, and love, cause I love what I do. And we do a thing for the 192 and the rest of the country, cause we from there too. Making sure love is given when I get it from you. Everybody, we regulate the parties. Come on, love it when they get a little rugged with it. Love.
Hello and welcome to episode 12 of the History Boys Abroad podcast. My name is Graham and I am here as always with my co-host Tony.
Graham.
Tony.
Graham.
How's it going?
Good, mate. How are you?
My voice is fucked from Oktoberfest, but apart from that, I'm sorry about the kind of degradation in sound quality over the last few weeks, but it's down to the cold and drinking too much alcohol, so
yeah.
It's just gonna have to deal with my fucking croaky voice.
Yeah, we can deal with it.
Speaking about croaky voices, this week we're talking about Dr. Joe Venglos.
Dr. Joe, the blank check.
Indeed. Or as Aston Villa said when he went to them, Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, aye. So yeah, we're going to be diving into Celtic's history once again, and we're going to be discussing the affable Dr. Joe Venglos, who prior to becoming Celtic's manager was a rather successful manager and assistant and a student and a player in his own right, although the Scottish press would have you believe that we appointed an absolute nobody just because cunts like Hugh Keevins and cunts like Keith Jackson hadn't heard of him. But anyway, the guy is we're going to talk about him today, and we're hoping to paint a bit of a picture as to what his tenure with Celtic was like, but also what he done and what he achieved in his life before and after Celtic.
One thing, speaking of picture, one thing I always remember about Dr. Joe Venglos was that tracksuit that he always wore.
Oh, a shell... No. It was a fucking shell suit. He wasn't allowed to stand near candles or any like hot bulbs or anything like that in case he went up in flames like a fucking bonfire.
You just wouldn't have expected a man of that age to be like a tracksuit or shell-shaped manager, you know what I mean?
I know.
But
he was 60 odd when he joined Celtic.
Right.
He was over 60 when he joined Celtic, and to be honest, Celtic should really think. I hope if anyone from Celtic's listening, bring back a shell suit. Bring back a shell suit. I would definitely wear it. You can get away. Exactly, you can get away with wearing that sort of stuff in foreign countries because you can't cut about in a shell suit or any Celtic sort of memorabilia. Walking down Victoria Road or on Duke Street or anything like that, you would just get lynched. But I'd wear a shell suit in Spain, regardless of the temperature. But anyway, I digress. So there's a lot to go into, basically too much almost to go into regarding his career before Celtic. To give you a brief overview of what he achieved, he's been coaching since 1966. Prior to that, he was a player. He was born in Czechoslovakia in about 1750, I think. No, he was really fucking old, but he was born in 1936. But he was born in Bratislava, which we now know as Slovakia.
1936 in Czechoslovakia, that must have been a fucking interesting place to be.
Exactly. So this, I'm going to paint a little bit of a picture here with the history of that country. So Czechoslovakia, he was born there, but he was actually born in what is now modern day Slovakia and what is now modern day Bratislava. He played for the local Bratislava team. He then got his actual doctorate in physical education, hence the doctor part of his name. It wasn't an honorary doctorate. We alluded to in previous podcasts when we spoke about him, like he was just maybe giving it for being a nice guy. Larson got one because he was gallus. I think Glasgow Uni gave Larson.
No, it was Strathclyde, man.
Was it Strathclyde gave him a doctorate? So this was a genuine one. He was a student and quite a successful one. But anyway, since he began coaching in 1966, he's coached in Australia, Czechoslovakia. He had coached the Australian national team in the 60s, in the 70s. I think there's a large, Australia's quite a relatively new country. There's a large part of Australia is a large part of Australia's population is made up by expats and immigrants. So someone like Mark Viduka, who we're going to talk about, he played for Croatia Zagreb, or now NK Zagreb, or whatever they're called now. He was actually Croatian, but he was actually Australian at the same time. So there
as my ex-Australian girlfriend's racist grandmother used to call them, new Australians.
Exactly. So Australia is basically made up of people that wanted to move for a better life. I don't know, but it's just how it goes. Anyway, so he was in charge of a Czechoslovakian Australian team that like Celtic were an Irish team that started in Scotland, and it's grown into a Scottish-Irish thing. Mm-hmm. I imagine it's the same sort of idea as over there. His first managerial position was with like a Czechoslovakian Australian league football team. Then he managed
Sydney Prague or something like that.
Sydney Prague.
Aye.
It's a good name, that, actually. Like,
sounds like a detective.
Sydney Prague. It's a very good shout. But so he managed the Australian national team. He's managed Czechoslovakia, Sporting Lisbon, Malaysia, Aston Villa, Fenerbahce, Slovakia, Oman, and then he came to Celtic. So let's just think about this. He was part of the. He took Czechoslovakia to the World Cup finals in Italy in 1990. Which, by the way, some of my earliest football memories, that like consistent memories, are from that. I can remember it quite well. And they were expected to go there and just be the whipping boys. I think they were in a group with like United States. They were in a group with Austria, and they might have been in a group with Italy. I think they were in a group with Italy. And obviously, Italy being the home side, you expect them to go through, and Czechoslovakia were nothing. Czechoslovakia beat the USA 5-1 in the first game. And nice. Venglos was the manager. Now, again, just to give you a historical thing, 1990 was the year after Czechoslovakia became free from communism. The Velvet Revolution happened in 1989. It was a non-violent transition from communism to democracy. But I don't really want to get too cerebral in that, because I don't want to start talking about politics and all that sort of shit, because I don't really know much about it. But anyway, just to highlight that he's taken a team that was, from a communist country for over 40 years, has taken them to World Cup Italy. They were next to nobodies. No one knew who they were. And they went on to the quarterfinals, and they get put out by West Germany, who, as we all know, won Italia 90. So, on the way to just to give you a bit more information about the World Cup, they beat Costa Rica 4-1. Costa Rica, remember, beat Scotland. In World Cup 90, they beat Scotland, but Czechoslovakia beat Costa Rica 4-1. As I say, they get put out by West Germany. But anyway, they finished second in their group, and they went through. But before that, when I was looking back over Venglos' career, he's not won much at all. He was the assistant manager when Czechoslovakia won the 1976 European Championship, and they actually did that by beating West Germany on penalties. They actually went and won the 1976 European Championship, which is a massive thing, and he was the assistant manager. Guess who scored the winning penalty?
1976? Panenka? There you go.
The Panenka, Antonin Panenka, scored the penalty, and I think this was like the crowning moment of like the Panenka becoming the Panenka, and you can actually see footage of it, which is really cool. So like Joe Venglos, the point that we are trying to make here is the fact that he was not a blank check. He was not a Doctor Who. He was someone with a decent reputation, and he is very highly respected within European football and beyond. So yeah, have you got something to say?
I was just about to say that it kind of. Did you listen to the Sports Sound interview with Fergus McCann?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was quite funny. He was talking about how he wasn't really. He didn't really want to go for Tommy Burns. He wanted a foreign coach. So when you look at Joe Venglos, he actually seems to fit the kind of description about what the kind of Fergus McCann would want.
Yeah.
Maybe a cheaper alternative, a seasoned foreign coach. Venglos comes in with all those factors. But I don't know about you. Were you? Obviously, you were surprised because you wouldn't have had any idea who Joe Venglos was. But I remember the day before we were heavily linked with Ruud Gullit.
Yeah.
So when Venglos was appointed, what did you think?
I was very small at the time. I can remember it though. Like when he got announced, I was like, "Who the fuck is this?" We were linked with apparently he was fourth choice. There was a guy called Egil Olsen who was first choice.
He used to wear wellies.
I think so. Is that right?
Aye.
But the reason he never accepted the job was because his dog would have had to have spent 3 months in quarantine to come to Glasgow. So he's like, I'm not prepared to do that. So his dog took priority, which is something worth thinking about, I guess. But anyway, he was obviously not the first choice, Venglos, but he, as you say, he ticked the boxes, and he wasn't a nobody. As I've just stated, he took Czechoslovakia to the quarterfinals of the World Cup. He also was part of the side. He was an assistant to the team that that won it in 1976, and he was also in charge of Aston Villa, Sporting Lisbon, and Fenerbahce, which these are massive clubs. One thing I did notice about his history is he didn't really spend too long in any place, apart from maybe Czechoslovakia, which is where he's from, which would make sense. But he went to Fenerbahce 1 or 2 years. Aston Villa, he was a disaster. In 1991, he took over Aston Villa, and nobody knew who he was. So obviously this is 7 years. We're going to be talking about the 1998-1999 season with Celtic, just to clarify. We're talking 1991, which is 7 years before he was at Fenerbahce, Slovakia, and Oman. So he was actually seen ahead of his time. And as we were talking about, who was it that sent the tweet in with that article from The Guardian?
It was at Politis Ouija.
Alright, cool.
It's an article about the 20 years of Arsene Wenger, talking about how he was a bit of a trendsetter when he came in, but they actually give a nod to Dr. Joe by saying that the methodology of training, the analysis of nutrition, recuperation, regeneration and physiological approach to the game. So they're saying that Wenger wasn't actually the trendsetter. It was Dr. Joe when he came into Aston Villa that was bringing in this new wave of thinking about football and about coaching and about basically dealing with players' bodies and making sure. When you read that and you look at his kind of record in different teams, it does sound a bit like Ronnie Dyler,
Well,
don't you think?
I mean, but Ronnie Dyler was what, 2015, 2016, 2014? We're talking like nearly 20. I mean, Wenger's 20 years ago, and Venglos at this point was 25 years ago. I was reading an article on Dr. Venglos. Dr. Venglos, listen to me. So formal as fuck. Dr. Joe, or
you sound like
Joe,
a Rangers fan.
Just call him Joey. Joey. I was reading an article on 442. It was like a big blurb on Venglos, and it was interviewing an unnamed Aston Villa player, and his quote was, "Steaks and chips were out overnight because he came in and changed the dietary conditions of the club, and he was coming in, basically ketchup and Coca-Cola was off the menu."
It's fun. So that was happening in 1990, but you still had fucking clowns like Rio Ferdinand moaning that David Moyes was trying to do that at Man United. When will players get the kind of fucking message that they need to be athletes? You know what I mean?
Yeah. We're talking nearly 30 years ago. In the 1991, we're talking nearly 30 years ago, and this guy had the foresight to see that this was, it was going to be important for players to do that. And I was reading an article as well. I think it was might have been with Tony Adams, and he's a recovering alcoholic or whatever. And someone else were talking about how it was regular to go out and they would go out and the players would go out during the week, have a night out during the week and a night out the weekend, and drink like 30 pints and all that. So he obviously saw that, and the British culture, as we now know, is obviously difficult to crack as a foreign manager. Le Guin tried it when he was at the Deed Cunts, and then obviously Dyler's came in, and there was a big row between Dyler and Lennon about fucking this and that. But anyway, that's not what this podcast is about. Dr. Venglos, Dr. Joe. So he was the first ever foreign manager in the top flight of English Premier Football. I don't think it wasn't the Premiership then. I think it was just called the English Premier League maybe. And he was signed on a 1-year contract again, which seemed to be quite a running theme with Venglos's requirements. Like he just almost wanted to be in a place for a short period of time.
Seems like a bit of a journeyman, like a journeyman manager.
Yeah, he seemed to like travelling. But like when he was announced that when he was the press had no idea who he was when he was like brought into the room. Like nobody expected him to appear. The press waiting for the Aston Villa press conference, like when the press are sitting waiting for him to appear behind the desk and take questions. He's nobody knew who he was, nobody expected it, and they were like, people were like, who the fuck is this? But a little quote, I don't know who it's from, but I'm just going to say it. Smiling, the fatherly-looking Venglos had the appearance of a man who relished the challenge of continuing the good work started by the more old-school Graham Taylor. Ellis warned, be Doug Ellis, I assume, however, that despite the amiable exterior, his new man possessed an iron fist inside a velvet glove. With the Iron Curtain still hanging resolutely, albeit precariously, around the communist Eastern Bloc, it was entirely suitable rhetoric from the chairman. Obviously, we're talking 2 years after the fall of communism in Venglos' country, so it's kind of a wee nod to that. But anyway, this is not an Aston Villa podcast.
Maybe it was Jennifer Ellis. Any chance it was Jennifer Ellis?
No. I'd need to Google that, mate. I
love that description of Fowler. Surely anyone over like 30 years old is Fowler looking.
Well, to be honest, he has got that look of a guy that would like to have a pipe and put his throttles up in front of a fire and enjoy a dram. Anyway, to finish off the Aston Villa chat, because they're wanks, his win ratio was shite. He avoided relegation. His win ratio over 49 games was 32%. Needless to say, 49 games is approximately one season, and he didn't last long. He was succeeded by Graham Taylor. He took over Graham Taylor, and then he was taken over by Ron Atkinson. So in between Graham Taylor and Ron Atkinson, you had this Eastern European doctor,
that's a sandwich I don't have been involved in.
Exactly. So just want to point out a couple of little statistics regarding Aston Villa that you might find interesting. 32% was his ratio. It was the third worst in the club's history. Who do you think the worst was in the club's history for
Aston Villa?
Aye. The guy that was in charge last season, Remy Gard. 14%, but second worst.
Alex McLeish?
No, in fact, I would love to have said either, but it was Billy McNeil. He had a 22% win ratio with Aston Villa. Yeah. So that was a little bit appropriate for what we're talking about regarding Celtic. But again, just want to highlight, he's not actually won a lot of trophies in his career. He has had a lot of jobs. He's had a lot of experience, but he seems to be more of a background type of guy more than anything, I think. Anyway, we're into season 98-99. Obviously, we know what happened in June or May 1998 with Wim Jansen and stopping the 10 and how significant that season was. And obviously, the hierarchy at this time was made up of Jock Brown and Fergus McCann and figures like that. So we know that obviously what happened with Jansen was like unheard of, and then there was a real cloud of shite over the summer.
You've got this atmosphere where like we've just won the league for the first time in decades.
Yeah,
and we're going into the Champions League for the first time ever.
Yep.
We were kind of expecting to build on what we had, and we make a really late appointment in the season. Yep. We make an appointment with someone that we've never heard of, someone who's quite old as well.
Yeah.
So the fans were fucking not very happy. Then you've got obviously the flag being raised to the chorus of boos.
Exactly. That was something that was quite significant. I'm not even sure Venglos was even at that game because he had a lot of trouble with work permits. Now this is when I think Czechoslovakia is still Czechoslovakia at this point. I don't think it's split into two countries, and it wasn't part of the EU. And again, I don't know if the EU was even around back then. However, he needed a visa or a work permit, and I think he was in the stand, but he wasn't allowed to be coached, something along those lines. Obviously, you have to do a lot of digging for these things. You need to click in. There's literally hundreds of links and you need to read them all, and that's kind of what we do and we enjoy it. But it was anyway, so Venglos was this guy turned up, nobody had really heard of. Obviously the initial reaction from the press was the standard, who the fuck is this guy, he's fucking shite, blah blah blah, which we know what to expect. I think he signed a 3-year deal. Something tells me he signed I seen it on one of the articles I read, a 3-year deal, but it seems a little bit unusual.
Non-Fergus.
It sounds non-Fergus, but also sounds non-Dr. Joe, because he was a bit of a what's the word? A guy that wanders around a lot.
Wandering old man.
He was a bit of a hobo, a bit of a guy that likes to cut about. Anyway, he was the 11th manager in Celtic's history, and I'm just going to talk you through the squad that we had for that 98-99 season. Feel free to correct me on any of this. So we had Jonathan Gould, Tom Boyd, Stephen Mahy, McNamara, Mark Reaper, Alan Stubbs, Henrik Larsson, Craig Burley, Harold Brackback, Morton Weghorst, Phil O'Donnell, Tommy Johnson, Simon Donnelly, Paul Lambert, Darren Jackson, Johan Mialby, Vidar Reset, Barry Elliott, Mark Burchell, John Paul McBride, Lubomir Moravchik, woohoo, Colin Healy, Andy McConaughey, Brian McLaughlin, woohoo, Stuart Kerr, Reggie Blinker, Tosh McKinley, Enrico Annoni, oh no, and David Hanna. So you can see there's a lot of mediocrity in there amongst absolute fucking quality. But
David Hanna, brilliant.
David Hanna. So, quickly go through some of the transfer window. I don't think transfer windows actually changed until like 2002, 2003. So this was prior to the standard system we have between June and September now, and like January and end of February is end of January. So there was like there's definite windows now. Back then, like we signed Moravchik in fucking October, for example.
Yeah.
Which would never happen now. But his first signing was Vidar Reset from an Austrian side, the Valley Shitters, ASK Linz.
Yeah.
September 1998.
Linz is a particular shithole in that country as well.
Oh really? Well, there you go. So maybe that tells you something about the player that Reset was, because he didn't really do all that much for Celtic, although he did play in some big games. So Vidar Reset, we signed Scott Marshall. I think that was in 1999 though, March. I think he was on loan. Mark Viduka, which we're going to have to talk about, but 3 million signing from Croatia Zagreb. Johan Mjällby, a guy who then went on to have around about 10 years of his life. He spent 10 years of his life at Celtic, whether he was a player or assistant manager or the coach. So that was a significant signing, and something that Venglos said in recent years that he knew that he would be an absolute success for him as a player. And not only that, he had the leadership qualities that he needed in his defence for this season we're talking about, but not only that, he would go on and become a decent manager. Now, I had a wee look. Mjällby is a coach. I'm not sure if they're in the Allsvenskan, the Swedish Premier League, but he's a manager of a team. I didn't bother clicking on the link. Too lazy. But we signed him in November, obviously Moravchik. Tony Warner, a very interesting figure. Do you remember Tony Warner?
He played in the 5-1 game, didn't he?
He played 3 games, but this was when we had we signed him in like a month contract. Something like that, and then we extended it for a couple more months. But that's just like, that's the sort of thing that fucking Partick Thistle will do. You know what I mean? And this was Celtic.
I listened to his interview. I think it was with the Celtic Underground podcast. And he just seemed to be delighted to have just been involved. You know.
Yeah.
But one thing I would say about like Venglos' permanent signings, that's one of the best signing records of any manager. You've got Mjällby, you've got Moravchik, and you've got Viduka. If you take Reset out of that, then those 3 players, I mean, that's amazing.
And he also brought in Colin Healy as well. I should add, he brought in Colin Healy as the final signing that he made. I
think players like Colin Healy and Scott Marshall, I would imagine, would be more of a club signing. You know, like players that are signed as a kind of whoever the manager is. Those players are going to get signed anyway. So.
Well, actually, I think that unfortunately, we are going to have to talk about a lot of negative things in this podcast, because during this time there were a lot of issues at the club. Obviously, we're just off the back of stopping the 10, and that was like, we didn't really expect that, and it was massive for us. It came as a bit of a surprise, but during this time there was a lot of issues, and this was when like the under 21 league, or was it the reserve league? Like, remember there used to be a reserve league or an under 21 league. I think they scrapped the reserve league and then made it to an under 21 league. But they would allow
like older
2
players.
Exactly. You would allow like 2 older players per game. So for players that were injured, you could put them in to get match fitness, for example.
Yeah.
So I think Colin Healy was brought in. He was a reserve player, and I think that Venglos liked him and sort of promoted him. But as we're going to talk about, Venglos suffered from injuries. Like a lot of the big games that he was involved in, he was missing several big players.
Just a second on Colin Healy. There was actually a very kind of integral coach for Celtic. I don't want to mention any name, but he was at our supporters club after a game one day, and he said that Colin Healy was a better player than Stelian Petrov. And this is a guy who was like obviously coached on a day-to-day basis and was with Celtic for a long time.
History Boys exclusive, mate. History Boys exclusive.
Aye. So at that time, this was a time obviously where Petrov had been playing right back for a long time.
Yeah.
But he was claiming that Colin Healy had much more potential than Stellan Petrov. So
it's a common thing that you hear from players. This wee guy that you went to school with was a better player than fucking, I don't know, Aidan McGeady.
Aye.
But then obviously McGeady goes on and does what he does. But anyway, so yeah, that's interesting. But Colin Healy was
I'd like to give some context of what we were up against as well, where the man came up. They were obviously in transition as well. They just brought in Dick Advocat. They had let go a lot of their bitter bastards, so like Alan McCoy, Andy Gorham, Stuart McCall, Richard Goff, Ian Duran, Alex Cleland, Craig Moore, all been moved on at this point. Gattuso had just left for $4 million. They had the massive blow of losing Peter Van Vossen to Feyenoord. On the other hand, they brought in, so all of these players are over $4 million in transfer fees alone. So Arthur Newman, Gabriel Amato, Giovanni Van Bronckhorst, Kanchelskis, Colin Hendry, Stefan Givarch, and then you've got lesser fees but are still quite expensive. Claudio Reyna, Stefan Kloss, Daniel Prodan.
Let me just interrupt you there. Stefan Kloss was the highest paid player in the UK at one point. The highest paid player. Yeah. Bearing in mind David Beckham, Roy Keane, Thierry Henry. It was before Thierry Henry, but just for context, remember that.
It was sort of good that they had a chairman that was putting his own money in and kind of doing everything above board to get this like £40 million transfer fees in this season. So
I just want to come back to you with that one. So you said $4 million. We had Mark Burchell. We had Simon Donnelly. We had David Hanna. We had Enrico Annoni. We had Tosh McKinley. God bless Tosh McKinley. He was a good player. But Darren Jackson. We're talking about guys that were good domestically. Maybe okay for Celtic, but the Huns were spending literally dozens of millions of pounds, and the pound back then was a lot stronger than it is today. And these guys were internationals.
Signing first-team players from Dortmund, Atletico Madrid, Fiorentina, Wolfsburg. They're signing first-team players. $5.5 million for Andre Kanchelskis alone.
Think about this. This was the most obvious thing in the fucking planet.
Aye.
Obviously they were fudging it. They were. Anyway, I don't want to give them any fucking oxygen. They're deep, absolute bastards. Celtic's season began on August 1st, which is, I guess it's kind of a normal time to start, but August 1st is very to the point. So our season began on the 1st of August. That was the league games, but we were obviously doing pre-season, and that entailed a pre-season tour of Holland where we had no manager for the first couple of games. Venglos wasn't brought until like 17th or 18th of July, but so we were in Holland. We lost the first game. We lost to an amateur side 2-1.
Awesome.
We rested a lot of players. Bearing in mind, 1998 was the World Cup summer, and Scotland actually attended as a team. So we had players at the World Cup, players like Tosh McKinley, and that would have been represented at the World Cup. And Stefan Mahe was obviously playing for France, and we had Reggie Blinker for Brazil and that. So obviously we were resting a lot of these players. But as I say, Dr. Joe said that he actually admitted in an interview with a Slovakian newspaper he was fourth choice behind Houllier, Olsen and Tommy Svensson, even though thereafter Celtic continued to toe the party line, which you expect him to say, no, he was our first choice. So Venglos' first choice was a testimonial against Kilmarnock, which is not something you see too often these days. Celtic playing testimonials against like Premiership, Scottish Premiership sides.
Who was the player?
Some wanker for Kilmarnock.
Kilmarnock choosing us in a friend in a testimonial. Brilliant.
I know. We won that 2-1. Then we played St Pat's in the Champions League qualifiers, as you alluded to. Celtic's first foray into the Champions League. We actually won 2-0 aggregate after a shite 0-0 draw. You can actually watch the full game. St Pat's are obviously a Celtic side. You know, there's a real affinity between us, them, and this that next thing. But one thing that stuck out was the middle sheds. There was a lot of middle sheds, baggy kits, bleached hair, fucking goatees, the lot.
Absolute I miss the baggy kits, man.
Oh, Jesus Christ. One thing that's worth pointing out here, it was quite I've never seen it before, was when St Pat's when the teams came out at Celtic Park and it was packed absolutely packed. St Pat's had posies of flowers, and when he went on at the pitch, like they done the shaking hands of the players, got their photos, and then they took their posies of flowers and went threw them into the crowds. All the players had a posy each and chucked them into the fans.
Maybe they were just Morrissey fans or something.
Perhaps. I was trying to think of a shite Smith joke here, but it's eluded me. So anyway,
you're miserable now.
I was going to say that, but that was shite, mate. So I won't say that again. So the last bit of trivia was that the referee was actually Slovakian. He was also from the town that Dr. Joe started his I think he started his managerial career at this club where this guy was from. So it's quite interesting that he would have been managing one of his first games at Celtic, and he was the referee was actually from a town where he had lived. So anyway, first home game of the season, 5-0 Celtic, Dunfermline at home. As you say, the league flag was unfurled to a chorus of boos, Tom Boyd standing looking awkward as fuck. And I think retrospectively, like obviously the hindsight's quality, a lot of people were probably cringing or regret the booing of that moment. Like Fergus was being booed, and we don't really, obviously you appreciate it now because you've seen what's happened elsewhere and you see how steady Celtic are these days, but obviously Celtic were very frugal and we weren't spending a lot of money. That biscuit tin mentality was in place, but obviously the Huns died.
I'm never going to be believed. But I swear to you, I never booed. I was just standing there. I never booed.
Yeah, no, I can believe that. I mean, I don't. Obviously, it wouldn't have been a majority. It would have been a minority of people that booed, but still loud enough to understand what was being said. But Celtic were tight as fuck, but Fergus ran a tight ship, and Celtic are in good. We're standing well just now financially, and things are run quite well. And I'd like to think that began with Fergus because we know the mess Celtic were in before the takeover. Like everyone knows what happened before the takeover. But as we're going to talk about in this podcast, there's a lot of bad things happening behind the scenes at Celtic with Fergus, Jock Brown, and even players like Lambert were absolutely guilty in making things worse for Venglos. Mm-hmm. There's a couple of little points I want to make. In the 1998-1999 season, the average attendance was 59,224. This was the season that the Jockstein stand was built, by the way. It was complete. Celtic Park was finished then. We played Liverpool on the 8th of August as the opening of it. We played Liverpool. I think they beat us 1-0. And they had like Michael Owen and Carroll's, Hines, Riedler and Steve McManaman and all that playing for them. So we opened up the new stadium. It was finally finished. No more temporary stands. Everything was up and running. It took quite a while, but Fergus managed to get there. A couple of little notes here. The Pete Diggers were chosen over Charlie and the Boys for the entertainment at the stadium on that day, and everyone was absolutely beeling because they wanted Charlie and the Boys, obviously, for some revs. Jimmy John, like Celtic invited, as they do with special occasions in almost probably every single game because they're walking gods. The Lisbon Lions, they invited the Lisbon Lions to attend the ceremony, and the only one that didn't attend was Jimmy Johnston. He said that he felt the club was being ripped apart. So it's a kind of a poisonous start to. I mean, if you're unfurling the league flag in the first day of the season and Venglos is the manager, and he's obviously probably just came in. He's obviously got contact from Celtic in the summer. Within a month, he's living in Glasgow. Mm-hmm. And he's been booed when they're unfurling the flag to celebrate winning the league. And not just any old league, we won, we stopped at 10. That must have been a very confusing time for anyone that was kind of new to it. So that one last thing, this was the year that SPL actually began. Before that it would have been like Scottish, whatever.
Mm-hmm. But it was still a 10 team league at this point as well, though.
Yeah. But in the 5-0 game, Burley scored a hat-trick, unfortunately. I don't know why that's a bad. He's a fucking absolute wank. That's a bad thing, but still, he scored a hat-trick for Celtic. There was a banner that read, "We're Irish, but not bigots, Mr. McCann," and then a security team mysteriously approached the fans and removed it from them, and nobody really knows why they took it from them, because obviously we're Irish, but not bigots, Mr. McCann is not exactly offensive behaviour material.
Yeah.
So it just proves that there was a lot of tension around the club. As I say, Dr. Joe needed a work permit, and after the match, in an interview, Venglos says the chairman deserves respect and support for what he's done for a great club. It is important for all the directors, supporters and players to be part of the same Celtic family. So he's obviously saying the right thing. That's one thing that struck me through the research, is how much of a gentleman Dr. Joe was. You know, he was a man's man. You know, he was in the middle of the players rowing with the board. Anyway, I've got a lot to get through, so I'm not going to dwell on that too much because I'm going to cover it anyway. So Celtic played Zagreb in the Champions League qualifier after St Pat's. 1-0 at Celtic Park. The contractual row engulfed the squad. McCann went absolutely mental at the players disputing money. There was a bonus row, like people were just demanding extra money for this and that. And McCann said,
wait a minute, a bonus row at Celtic? You
I know,
must be mistaken, man.
Absolutely scandalous. It was a shocker. I couldn't believe it. I had to double check. You know, Fergus McCann says, fine, you're not getting your money, and donated the lot to York Hill charity, the York Hill Children's Awards. Darren Jackson scored the goal. We beat Zagreb at Celtic Park. Guess who played against us in this game, in the Zagreb game?
That would be Marko Viduka.
Yeah. Anyone else?
Robert Prozinecki?
Yes, Prozinecki. He actually hit the bar with a free kick, and then in the return leg,
he got his lad out and rubbed it in their faces.
Exactly, he scored a double.
And then smoked 5 cigarettes.
Yep, he scored a double in the return leg, described by one media outlet as the worst European display by any Scottish team. Pierluigi Collina was the referee in the second game, and the manager of Zagreb. Any idea who the manager of Zagreb was?
Was Crankier?
Yes, that
was
Cranker the wanker. We spoke about him on the Rapid Vienna podcast.
Aye.
So
one thing I remember about that was just how immobile our defence was. We had Stubbs and Reaper, who years afterwards you would fucking give you a right nut to have Stubbs and Reaper.
Yep.
But we were getting like a hot knife through butter every time they went forward.
Yeah.
And of course you had that famous moment where Reggie Blinker shat himself in a 60-40 with the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Even if we'd scored that, I don't think we would have gone through. Yeah. But that kind of haunted Reggie Blinker for the rest of his Celtic career because he was fucking shite most of the time.
It was a swap deal for fucking Decano. We got absolutely bumped, man. We got fucking bumped stupid for that. But Darren Jackson scored the goal at Celtic Park. I should just add, it was Darren Jackson didn't really do a lot at Celtic, but he scored that goal, which almost took us to the Champions League group stages. But after
regrettably, one of the only Celtic players to be booed in recent years, which was quite embarrassing at the time. But he got booed coming on in one of the matches.
One of the few. I mean,
not nice for you, but you're own, but...
I mean, I'd argue there's probably more than a few players. But anyway, we played Aberdeen in between these games, lost 3-2. The contractual rubbish rumbled on. Players, hierarchy, and even Matt McGlone were at war. Matt was the writer of the Celtic View at the time and criticised the players, and that sort of erupted into a war, apparently. Maybe I'm being a bit harsh saying it was a war, but from what I read, it seemed like everyone was going at everyone. It seemed like a bit of a bar fight when we wore in the Aberdeen game. We wore that neon green and black strip for the first time. Remember the Umbro one with the big massive Umbro and the big stupid collar?
Oh, aye.
The black one with the Umbro sign and the massive Umbro in the middle of the jersey.
And it was little thin green lines, is that the one?
That's the one, yeah. It was actually quite a nice strip.
We had that
for the first time. We got a player sent off each. We missed 2 fucking penalties. Larson scored a double to make it. It was 3-2. Larson scored a double. The second goal and the final goal of the game was in 94 minutes when Larson scored a penalty, but we missed 2 other penalties. Simon Donnelly and Craig Burley missed penalties in that game. So fast forward, we've been pumped out of Europe. Airdrie knocked us out the League Cup on August 29th. Issues again, roommate. I know, don't laugh, mate. It's bad. Don't fucking laugh, right?
League Cup, Celtic in the League Cup, man. Fucking brilliant.
You know, and we were defending it. We'd won it the year before. We were defending it. Butchell made his debut, so Butchell obviously has a lot to thank Joe Venglos for. Obviously, he scores in the 5-1 game. He scores the final goal, but tapped out. Another loss. Now, there was a lot of games. There's 20 games that we played between the start of the season in the league, the start of the season, and the 27th of December, which was the final game. You're going to cover the second half of the season, so we seem to have this thing where we never got there was no consistency apart from actually losing a lot of games and dropping points. We lost 2-0 at Kilmarnock on the 31st of October, 2-1 St Johnstone on the 14th of November, Hearts 6th of December. We're losing a game in the league every single month. And it has to be said, the bonus round, in my opinion, absolutely impacted the results in that the impact that Venglos could have had at Celtic.
Yeah.
Had there been a more stable board and a more harmony at the club, it could have been completely different. And it seems like it could have been right guy, wrong time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So lost at St Johnstone to home. We weren't doing too well since Zagreb. 3 draws. We drew 0-0 with the Huns. Had loads of injuries. Like, it just seemed to be a common thing where he would have 3 or 4 players missing each time. And I think Venglos was, in all this shite, he was just trying to be very diplomatic. He's trying to like deal with the people above him and the people below him and the players. And there's just really dark undertones again for Celtic that just they're far too common in our history. Where we're doing this research, I mean, we do a bit of digging, and you can see there's like clouds over large parts of our history. But
what do you think that says about like the last maybe 10 years? Do you think that says that players are just? Do you think it's something to do with the culture nowadays, the culture given by Lawwell and Desmond, or do you think it's just modern players that we just don't seem to have that anymore? We just don't seem to have this kind of toiling from one kind of crisis to the next.
I think it's like a bit of both, really. I think that players now are probably more professional. There's more, the spotlight is on the more social media and the internet being invented by, the internet's massive now and everyone's on social media, and I think that, as I say, like, it seems like Fergus sort of kick-started the tight ship that Celtic now run. I think it's down to the fact that Fergus started it, and Lawwell's picked it up, and Desmond's picked it up and ran with it, and they get criticised. No matter what people do, like in Celtic, they'll always be criticised occasionally. But you can't deny that we are being run financially. Anyway, we're being run the right way, and the club seems to be on the up. Absolutely now, anyway. Things with currently with Celtic are as good as it's ever been. But it's a good question. But I think it's a bit of both with the players and the actual the hierarchy in charge. But pumped out by Zagreb. We drop into the UEFA Cup. We play Vitoria Guimarães. We win 2-1 away. An away game where we win 2-1.
Brilliant.
And it's interesting that we'd win an away game in Europe when we were on a 5-game no-win run in the league. We hadn't won a game in 5 in the league, but yet we go to Portugal and we win 2-1. And we also win the return leg 2-1 as well.
We're big game hunters, man. We just turn up for the big games.
That's it. Especially, I mean, Vitoria Guimarães are names, to be honest. But I can remember being drawn with them. I remember it being in a heavy exotic name. The first leg, Larson and Donnelly, and the second leg, Larson and Stubbs. So, again, just the lack of consistency that Celtic had in this time was just so frustrating. You see, like, you look at the thing, and it's like green for a win, yellow for a draw, and red for a loss, and it's just like on off, draw. It's just peppered with like shite results. In 4 league games though, in this 20-game period, we scored. So in 4 league games between August and December, we scored 5 or more goals in 4 games, which is a bit of a coffin. I think we beat. Obviously, we beat Rangers 5-1, which I'm going to talk about right now. On the 21st of November, everyone knows what happened. Larson double, Lubo double. Larson's Lubo's header was fucking amazing. And obviously, he's finished the one where Larson steps over the ball and dummies it. And this was Lubo's first goal for Celtic, because we'd signed him a month before that, and we know how the press reacted to Moravcik. Buttrell scored the winner, the final goal rather. And again, this was when Rangers were spending a lot of money. Van Bronckhorst scored an amazing free kick. Tony Warner was in goals. And
this is a situation where I'd never experienced like owning Rangers like that. I just when I turned up, I think I maybe mentioned it before, I used to take fucking rosary beads to the game and everything.
Yeah.
It was just, I did not expect this to happen. No one would expected that to happen. You know what I mean? It was totally out of the blue. Yeah,
and it points to how erratic Celtic were. With all the shit that was happening in the club, Venglos seemed to get it right sometimes. He would get it very right. We scalped a few teams, as I just mentioned, but we would be losing at home to St Johnstone and then battering a team of cheating bastards
Mm-hmm.
And the next week, it just, there was no consistency, there was no rhyme or reason.
It was very much a season of two halves, though, which we're going to talk about. Because, I mean, after Christmas, we're like a totally different team.
Yeah. I haven't looked at the second half of the season, so I'm intrigued to hear what you've got to say. I should add that after we beat Guimarães, we play FC Zurich in October the 20th, the first leg in UEFA Cup. We draw 1-1 at Celtic Park. Tom Boyd sent off and brought back scores. Injuries, again, we're missing a lot of players. And then we got beat 4-2 on the 3rd of November, I think it was. And we get put out. Lambert and Jock Brown were apparently at war. Lambert had a book signing for a book that he was bringing out, and he was doing a press conference, and he had to cancel the press conference because him and Jock Brown and Celtic were at war. Essentially everyone was at war, everyone apart from Dr. Joe, it seems. Everyone was throwing digs at each other, and it was a horrible time. We had 10 players injured or ineligible for this return leg. David fucking Hanna started that game, and the bench was made up of under 21s. So the writing was on the wall with things like that we were just going to get put out, and it's FC fucking Zurich, you know what I mean? So obviously Viduka signs on the 20th of November, which is the day before we played the Huns. I think it was the 21st November. But his debut, as we spoke about, wasn't until fucking February. When he signed for Celtic, he was gone again within a couple of days, claiming that he was too stressed to focus on football. He was at an emotional and physical low. He was in and out of Glasgow. Basically, Glasgow, Croatia, Australia, that's where you could find him. He was in one place at any given time.
And then Zagreb are claiming that we hadn't paid them at one point as well.
It was a shady as fuck deal, to be honest. And all through this time, Celtic were desperately trying to sign strikers. We were linked with Crespo. Anyone can be linked with Crespo. All you need to do is create a link and try and get it viral.
It shows you what position in the world you are. But when you get linked with these players, like Robin van Persie and stuff,
exactly. I know it's fucking shut monkey bastards. But we're linked with more realistic people like Martin Dallin and a couple of others who we tried to get, but we weren't doing too well on the transfer front. And again, that's something that sort of hindered Dr. Joe's progress. We never really managed to string more than 2 league wins in a row at all in that season. We really, really struggled. Up to the end of December, just before we finished the first half, we beat Dunfermline 5-0. 5 second half goals, 0-0 at half time. You'd imagine the fans were going absolutely tonto. I don't know if you remember the game.
Did Bratback not score a hat-trick in that game?
No, 2 for Larson, 2 for Lubo. David Murray shited judo. One for me, Albie. And Vida Reset was getting absolute dog's abuse for being shite, and then he made a statement saying, no, I know I've been shite, I'm just getting played in the wrong position. I'd be better in the central midfield.
Vida Reset is like every single utility player that's ever existed. They're bad in all positions.
He would have been amazing in Champman, 2002, 2003. He would have been fucking brilliant in that.
To be fair to Vida Reset, he actually went on to have a pretty good career at centre-back for Rosenborg. But I mean, with us, it was just some people on Twitter seem to have a nice memory of him, but not for me. Apart from that time they fucked a Hun up. Remember that tackle?
I got sent off.
Aye, that was a great tackle.
Yeah, it was fair. It was a fair tackle. But he wanted to play centrally where Libo was playing, and obviously that wasn't going to happen. So anyway, he was in and out of the squad, and that was Vida Reset. In between this 19th of December and the last game of the season of 1998, which was December 27th, there was a lot of talk about takeover bids for the club. Now I think that Fergus had been in for a while, and sort of he'd been there. He took over in 94, 95ish, and this was obviously 5 years later. So I think Fergus was right time to go. Jim Kerr of Simple Minds fame and Kenny Dalglish led a consortium to try and buy Celtic, to try and take them off, and they were adamant, we are football men, and they were doing press conferences, and they were asked questions like, right, where's the money coming from? And they would say, no comment. What does that say? What does that remind you of?
Wanker, man.
It reminds you of the fucking dead cunts. Where's the money coming from? Don't you worry about it. We've got the money somewhere.
Next year's season tickets.
Oh, unbelievable. So that's a heavy shady time for Celtic.
I can't go Jim Kerr, man. He's a fucking mouthpiece. Every time he speaks, it makes me want to punch the TV screen.
Good tunes, but I don't mind some Simple Minds. But the last game of 1998 and the last game of the first half of the season, 27th of December, we beat Dundee 3-0 away. Again, we're winning big results away, and then we're losing 1-0 at home to St Johnstone, and then we're losing 2-1 away to Aberdeen and 1-0 to Hearts and all this sort of shit. O'Donnell scored, Vidar Reset scored, and an own goal, and I'm genuinely surprised. It was Rab Douglas scored an own goal.
Fuck off.
It's a scandal. I couldn't believe it, man. Honestly, shocker, man. And
Maybe
apparently,
fruit in his own net, like
probably
a few times.
See, another thing that I read which was quite funny. Mark Viduka turned up at the Melbourne CSC for the Christmas party, and he'd been at Celtic for a month, and he wasn't like. He says he was emotionally injured. I'll take that as meaning depressed, emotional and physical. Though I can take that as feeling depressed, which is understandable. But he rocked up at the Australia CSC for their party. I bet the cunt did not put his hand in his pocket either. I bet he was tight as fuck.
But I bet he sang Joe McDonnell on the karaoke.
I hope so. A Rebel Fest at IRAoke. And apparently in this game, Celtic sang Cheerio 10 in a row for the entire game. But hammering teams one week, drawing the next, losing the next. Absolutely zero consistency in the play with Celtic. So 20 league games that I've just covered there or thereabouts. 42 goals scored approximately, 20 goals conceded, 9 wins, 6 draws, 5 losses. It's not good enough.
No, not great. But then see what we did get was consistency.
Consistency and inconsistency.
It was pretty good. If you look at this second half of the season, then it's pretty good overall. So obviously we start with a traditional New Year game against the Huns. 2 each at Ibrox, which is at any time that's a pretty good result.
Yeah.
I mean, at that time we weren't winning many away games against them. So Stubbs and Larson scored the goals. So that gets us off and running in that year. So that's 1999. We then go on to have 9 straight wins. And these weren't just small victories, we were pumping teams. We win 3-1, we win 5-0, 3-0, 4-0, 1-0, 7-1 against Motherwell. I think you'll remember that game. It was a night game on telly. Moravcik with the free kick.
Yep.
2-1, which was Viduka's debut for us. He comes off the bench against Dundee United, replaces Harold Bratback. We then, I was at this game. This is one of my first away games. It was 3-0 against Morton. This was Viduka's full debut. He scores 2 goals. I remember it was a fucking minging freezing night, and I was behind the goals in Morton. It was just small walls. Everyone was just standing in these walls that were made up of like broken brick and shit like that. It was dangerous as fuck, but it was a good game. So Viduka get 2 goals in that game, and Larson get the other one, and then we win 5-1. So 9 games in a row, 9 victories, and we're demolishing teams for the most part. So this has brought us right back into what was regarded as a title race. Let's talk about the Viduka impact at this point. So, as you said, signed Viduka in November, doesn't start playing games until the February, but when he does, 2 games in his debut, two goals in his debut, 2 goals in his next game, then a goal, and 2 goals. So back to back, he scores 8 goals in 5 games. If you think about the kind of games that we lost or drew before, when he was signed but could have played, we dropped points in December. We get beat 2-1 off of Hearts. We drew 1 each with Dundee United, and we drew 2 each with the Huns at Ibrox. If he'd played, maybe we'd have got more from those games. Maybe not, but we'll never know. He then gets a bit of a injury, and he's out for the last few games of the season. But we draw nothing each with Kilmarnock, and then again we go on to have a few victories: 5-0, 2-0, 4-2, 1-0, and this takes us up to the defining moment of the season. We have 2 games back to back: St Johnstone away and the Huns at home.
That's St Johnstone away and Huns at home, exactly. Yeah.
St Johnstone away we lose 1-0. So after all these fantastic victories, home and away we lose 1-0 with St Johnstone, and then of course we have the Hugh Dallas game at Celtic Park where we get beat 3-0. Stephen Mahay gets sent off for slapping Neil McCann. That fucking wee cunt Neil McCann scores 2 goals. The highlight of the game for me was the guy falling off the top tiers. You remember this?
Of course I remember it. The highlight for me was Hugh Dallas getting scudded by a coin. I don't condone violence. I'm not a pacifist, but Bute. Dallas is a fucking Hun bastard.
But what I loved about the guy falling off the top tier was when he was getting stretched around the pitch, he was doing the cheerio to 10 in a row dance in front of the Huns as he was getting stretched past them. So that was kind of the only bright spot of that game, apart from Hugh Dallas getting the scalp with a coin. Essentially, those two games were what stopped us winning that league.
What was the points tally? Do you know where Celtic and the difference between us and them at this point in the season? So we're talking like Aprilish, we're talking start of May.
I don't have the points difference at that point, but we lost by 6 points. So
right, so that's those two games there. That's
those two games. So if we'd beaten St Johnstone, that was another 3 points, and obviously Rangers wouldn't have got the 3 points against us, so we would have overtaken them and won the league. After that game, we went on to win our last 3 games of the season, and but the league was over at that point. We were going to places like Aberdeen away, winning. Dundee United away, winning. We were winning these hard games.
Yeah.
But St Johnstone away, Huns at home.
Hearts away 4-2. I mean,
aye.
It's a massive result.
So we got some real momentum in that second half of the season. With bringing in Viduka, I think our injuries kind of lessened as well, and we were able to put out our full team. Venglos was getting a bit of momentum. We obviously went into the cup final, the Scottish Cup final, where we'd get beat 1-0 by Rangers. So it was just those kind of... It was the kind of same as Tommy Burns, where we would be able to win games, but when it came to the crunch against the Huns, we just weren't able to do it.
Yeah, I mean, again, we should point out the Huns were absolutely juicing. Like, fuck, at this point. We're talking Celtic, as I say, players like Colin Healy, Brian McLaughlin, Enrico Annoni, Reggie Blinker, Stuart Kerr, Jonathan Gould wasn't the best goalkeeper up against Stefan Klos, who had just won the European Cup with Borussia Dortmund, and players like that coming in, and that's what we were up against. So it's actually commendable, really, that Celtic managed to beat them in at least one game that season, because the golf and class is there. Obviously, players like Larson, Moravchik, Lambert stand out, but Reaper, Stubbs, McNamara, players like that. But man for man, they were light years ahead of Celtic.
It's just galling. Like, if we'd had that second half of the season form in the first half, if we didn't have these bonus rounds, if we didn't have all that shite going on, then maybe history would look back on that Venglos season as with a bit more optimism. But one thing I do want to look at is the kind of league point comparison with Venglos and the seasons kind of before and after. If you take, so up until 2000, it was the 10-team league, 38 games. Every other season, we had the league was won with a higher points total. So we wouldn't have won the league in any season. The only season we could have won the league would have been the 94-95 season, where so that was Tommy Burns' first season, where Rangers won the league with 69 points, which seemed like a massively low number. That was the season we finished fifth with like 2 points. Even adjusting for the inflation of going up to the 38 games with the 12-team league, we would not have won the league at any point in the last 15 years. So essentially, the Venglos team's point total was just not good enough. It was just nowhere near good enough to win the league at any point.
Yeah.
One thing though that is quite optimistic about that season was our goals. We scored 84 goals that season.
Yeah.
So that was more than any of the Tommy Burns season. Let's look at this. So we've got that Venglos season, and we've got the Tommy Burns season where we've got Di Canio, we've got Tom, we've got Van Hooijdonk, we've got the Wim Janssen season where we've got Larson on fire and we're winning the league, and we've got the John Barnes season which comes after Joe Venglos. Which season do you think scores more goals than the Joe Venglos season?
The John Barnes season.
It's the John Barnes season by 6 goals. We scored 20 more goals in the Joe Venglos season than we did in the season we won the league with Wim Janssen. So these 7 wins, these 5-0s, these 5-1s, we were scoring the goals, we were hitting the form.
Yeah.
But it just wasn't enough.
We were regularly scudding teams. I mean, like once a month a team was getting absolutely horsed.
Exactly, yeah.
I mean, we beat Aberdeen 5-1 away.
Yeah. And then obviously you had the John Barnes season where John Barnes, because actually should have kept Aberdeen because we beat them like 6-0, 5-0, 5-0, 6-0, 7-0 at one point. I remember we beat them at home and Viduka and Larson get a hat trick each.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it kind of goes like that same thing where you can have little possession but win the game. We were scoring lots of goals, but we just weren't getting the points.
Yeah.
So Venglos obviously moves on from us. He ends up at Jeff United in Japan, named after Jeff Bridges.
Unbelievable, eh?
I wouldn't believe it if someone told me that. In 2002, I looked to see what was the kind of context of Jeff United. They'd never won the league. They still have never won the league. He got the team to 7th in the league, which looking back in all their kind of finishes, that seems a bit average. He had a 43% win rate. One thing though, he has had the best cup performance in Jeff United's history. He got them to the quarterfinals of the J League Cup and the semi-final of the Emperor's Cup. So I mean, a little kind of silver lining for Venglos at Jeff United, but that was his last position as a manager in football.
Did we not sign Koki Mizuno from them?
I think so. I mean, he does seem like the kind of legend that would come from Jeff United. So
let me have a quick squint here. Aye, we did.
There you go.
Fucking knew it. So we signed Koki Mizuno from Jeff United. Anyway, so yeah, Venglos. And did you find anything in your side of the season? Was there any uncertainty over the Bob? Was there anything that you came across with anything like that? Anything? The
controversy seemed to kind of even itself out a bit, and that I think that kind of matched up with the fact that we started winning the games as well. Maybe there was less focus on the off-field things because the on-field things were working a bit better. Obviously, there was a lot of shit over the 3-0 game at Celtic Park, but fuck it.
Yeah. No, that would make sense that he would. All the shit happening in the first half of the season and the performances are just erratic. Still dishing out coffins, but then the second half of the season it evens out and performances are there and we're close towards the end of everything. And yeah, as I say, with Venglos, like right guy, wrong time maybe.
I mean, when you look at that second half of the season, we dropped points away to Kilmarnock, away to St Johnstone, at home to Rangers. So three games we dropped points in. I mean, for someone, if you said to someone you need to go through the second half of the season without dropping any points, we pretty much got as close as kind of expected at that. If it wasn't for the first half of the season, Venglos would have probably been a title winning manager. Who knows? Like maybe fucking Avocat was taking the foot off the gas a little bit because he had a bit of a leeway, but that's the way on paper that's the way it was. You know what I mean?
These hollow fucking trophies that these cunts won just into the backs, like it's just, it makes you quite sad. But one thing that I noticed about Venglos was someone had said that he is arguably responsible for not responsible as such, but like he's credited with giving Larson a more of a free striker's role. Because in games Celtic were playing with one up front and it was Darren Jackson, and I don't think Larson would have been playing, but I read Celtic played one up front and Darren Jackson was the out-and-out striker, with Larson maybe played behind him or to the right. But he was credited with maybe moving Larson more central and pushing him up the park a bit more. And this season Larson scored like 29 goals or something stupid like that. So
I remember I had a teacher, St Luke's Barhead, who was a St Mirren fan. And at this point, he rated Barry Ferguson more than Larson because he thought that Larson wasn't an out-and-out goal scorer. Oof. So I mean, that's a kind of
Barry Ferguson.
Aye, he thought that Barry Ferguson was a better prospect, a better player.
You can't see, but I am shaking my head, and tutting and rolling my eyes here in the back of my head.
So that was Mr. McCormick, biology teacher, St Luke's High School. So fuck him.
Fuck him. So that was Dr. Joe. That was it was quite an in-depth one, and I enjoyed that. And I think the thing that I take away from that was that he was a victim, maybe in a whirlwind of shite that surrounded Celtic at that time, and the whole McCann thing with the takeovers and the players not signing, and the debacle with the row where players were arguing over not being given enough money and this, that. And he's just like that. He's just a new guy in the door, and he must have been like, what the fuck is going on?
You've also got, like, have you been watching that Scotland's game?
I've seen the first 2 episodes.
Aye, so you heard, I think it was Graham Spears getting interviewed and talking about how David Murray basically ensured that all the good press was coming to Rangers. And you had, obviously it's the famous stuff with Hugh Keevins, challenging Dr. Joe to a race, calling him an old man. There's a famous quote about, I don't know, what is it, something like, I don't know what's funnier, that Celtic wouldn't open their biscuit tin to sign a proven talent like John Spencer, or that they've wasted money on Dr. Joe's friend Lubomir Moravcik. So at this time you've got this fucking deep disrespect coming from the media.
Yeah, they were all in the back pocket of the
house. And I mean, you can't kind of underestimate how important that is for Celtic fans that maybe don't see every game, but they're like reading fucking Hugh Keevins' column thinking, who the fuck's this manager that we've got? And then that's putting more pressure on the Celtic kind of management team. It was fucking disgraceful.
I know.
Every journalist going about that time should fucking hang their head in shame, man.
Well, 2 things I want to say before we finish and move on to the current affairs. First thing is, I saw the Daily Records numbers yesterday, the statistics of their print editions, and it's dropping rapid. So hopefully it's out of business soon, because I fucking hate the Daily Record. And secondly, Celtic are the fucking establishment club these days, so get it fucking up them.
Exactly. So Dr. Joe Venglos, where would, if you were to kind of put a list together of managers from maybe Tommy Burns up until now, where would Joe Venglos sit in your estimations?
Oh, so difficult, because Martin O'Neill, number 1.
Yeah.
Then it's too early to judge Rodgers.
Fuck it, I'm getting Rodgers in number 2, man.
Right, and then it would need to be Wim Jansen.
Okay.
Wim Jansen, and then it would need to be Dyler. I mean, let's be honest.
What about we GS?
Oh fuck! I forgot about striking. So Martin O'Neill, striking, Lennon. It would need to be Dyler, because he won something. He won 3 things, and then it would need to be Dr. Joe.
So Dr. Joe above Tony Mowbray, above John Barnes.
Oh fuck! Aye, Habs the fuck absolutely.
Above Tommy Burns.
Too difficult. Nah. Below Tommy Burns. Tommy Burns. I mean, what, we've had about 8 managers since then, and not including the current one. So he would be near the end. He'd be behind. He'd be in front of Mowbray, and then Barnes, and then Venglos. How about that?
Aye. So basically the best of the shite.
Basically, best of a bad bunch.
Okay. Good. Joe Venglos, the best of the shite. So we got some Twitter feedback about Dr. Joe. First one came in from... This is probably not the first one, because this is probably the opposite way around. So the latest one came in from Thomas Hanlon at Tommy Hanlon 81. He said, always seemed an honourable, decent man. Pressing this country and some of our fans and players' attitude to him was shameful. Chris at Chris1888 said, dreadful start due to his late summer arrival and that ridiculous bonus row. Left some terrific players for successors though. Yeah, I guess that's kind of something. We could have just read out that instead of doing an hour podcast on it.
Done.
St Paul's Celtic at St Paul's Celtic said, very unlucky manager, Had he had a full pre-season, things might have been different. Dallas got scudded with a coin that year. Also, the press treatment of him was appalling from the get-go. Never seen a manager subjected to that level of abuse anywhere.
Yeah.
Liam M. Scullion said the infamous Hugh Keevins weapon quote, followed by that Derby debut 5-1. That's brilliant. Have you heard that? Hugh Keevins, you're a weapon.
Of course, but that's now no longer the daddy. Of course, what happened on Friday night on that fucking idiotic radio show was much fucking better.
We can maybe talk about that in a minute. Shia Lagal at the Galatron said, very unlucky with injuries, played some great stuff under him, maligned by the media but gave us the greatest of players, Libo. Amy High at Glasshoe-Hammy86, very confusing Twitter handle. Had a lot of players coming back from France 98 that didn't help, 10 players if I remember right. I can see that point, but I think the Huns with all their fucking massive signings probably had a lot coming back as well.
Well, I should have pointed out they had fucking a World Cup winner on their team. Stefan Gievars. He actually won the World Cup and then signed for the Huns.
Like players that played in the World Cup that didn't deserve to be there: Stefan Gievars, Edson Braffheid.
He did. To be fair, Edson Braffheid, he didn't fucking win it.
No.
He was just in a final, but
hanging a bit.
Jesus, it just tells you the money these cunts were spunking.
Aye, I love the fact that people talk about that France team like they didn't have a forward up front, but the forward was Stefan Gievars.
Yeah.
Richard McGinley at Richie Stoke said the most underrated manager in our history, and he gave us Moravchik and Mialby. The press were terrified of him.
Good point.
And sought to ridicule him, more knowledge of the game than anyone since or before. I think that's quite a kind of... He got like called up to do like FIFA conferences and stuff like that, and do talks at FIFA academies and things. So it seems like, you know how they talk about some comedians or like the comedian's comedian? He seems to be like a kind of football person's football person.
A coach's coach. As I said, like maybe being the main man in a team, especially a team where Celtic, where the demand is win. You can't lose a game because the press will be all over you. Seems like he was maybe suited to be in a more hidden position where he wouldn't be, in the media every single week. Some in a backroom position.
Director of football, I think, would have been ideal.
I'm pretty sure Celtic gave him some nondescript European technical advisor role. Because as I say, I think he was given a 3-year contract. What were the circumstances around him leaving, actually?
I think it was just a case of maybe like they didn't sack him and moved. I don't know this for exactly, but like maybe they just moved him into that position.
Yeah.
As opposed to actually sacking him. So
yes, a sidestep. But as you say, like he was, for everything I've read, he's highly respected in the football world.
Yeah.
He worked for FIFA for many years. His experience is like you won't find a manager with that type of experience either. Like he's managed almost everywhere.
Yeah.
So good point. Good tweet.
Last one is Robert Sherry again at Politis_Ouija. He said, looking forward to hearing the podcast. 5-1 game, mad. Marco Viduco, Vida Reserve. Dr. Joe underappreciated in my opinion. And
excellent.
That's one thing I've just actually been thinking about was like if you'd taken like Ronnie Dyler, Neil Lennon into that season, do you think they would have fared any better? I mean, placing Venglos below these people, it's really kind of tough comparison.
Nah, it's really too difficult to compare. It's because Dyla didn't face the Deed Huns, and Venglos felt that the absolute wrath of their financial vandalism, as Graham Spears likes to refer to it as financial vandalism, and it's true. Unfortunately for Venglos, he came at a time where not only Celtic were fucking falling to pieces behind the scenes, the Huns were just fucking ramping up the money and spending, as we now know, spending jelly beans. We never had any money, so.
Yeah. Did I ever tell you about like when Rangers signed Jelavic but didn't pay for him? Did I ever mention that?
Rapid Vienna podcast, maybe? No, I don't think so.
No. Okay.
No.
So yeah, that was Joe Venglos. Let's talk about modern stuff. So we're not going to spend much time talking about games that are, like a week old. Inverness Calais. I actually thought we played well. Great goal by Scott Sinclair. We should have beaten them maybe 5 or 6-1, but the chances just didn't go in. Alloa game was the day that I was at Oktoberfest. I had about 7 litres of beer. Wasn't seeing anything that night. Watched the goals back, and fucking both of them were brilliant goals, man. Especially Dembele's. Yesterday. No, sorry, fucking today. Celtic Kilmarnock 6-1. What did you think of that?
Fantastic. One of the most enjoyable games of football I have watched since the Hun game. I think the performance was obviously the best we've seen under Rodgers so far. Kilmarnock at home, you expect to cuff them. They're not doing too bad, and they finished near relegation material last season, but you still expect them. This Lee Clark, not Lee Sharp as I was calling him yesterday. I get my ex-English footballer idiots confused. So anyway, they've been doing not too bad this season, and I did expect Celtic to roll them, but the performance was just unbelievable. Everyone, apart from Doris de Vries, perhaps played a part. Tierney was fucking incredible. Sinclair again. I mean, Sinclair didn't do hundreds, but he scored the penalty and he took it very well, and the keeper was nowhere near it.
I think Sinclair's movement alone creates so much space for everyone else.
He's a handful. Like, even when you've seen it against Barcelona, when he got the ball and he turned round and faced, see, when he's one-on-one with anyone, I fancy him to take them. Seen it like a couple of chances. Now, when I was at that game, I was at the other end of the pitch when he was doing that in the first half, so I couldn't, it's difficult to really see. But when he got the ball and he ran with the ball, he's causing trouble for any sort of defence. So, but he's been an amazing signing. He has been absolutely amazing, and it just goes to show what like a little bit of TLC can do to a player. He was written off by the press, the English press. He was getting a game for Aston Villa. As I say, Aston Villa had the worst season they've ever had in the top flight of English football last season, and he was part of that squad. And he just come up. Brendan Rodgers gave him a wee cuddle, bought him some chocolates, and I don't know. He seems to be a completely new player, and I think he's only going to get better.
See when you start dating a bird that's been like fucked over by her ex-boyfriend.
Yeah.
And then they become so appreciative of you. That's what it feels like. It feels like Scott Sinclair's been fucked over for a few seasons, and he just seems to fucking love Celtic. He loves being loved. You know what I mean?
Oh, aye. That's all very romantic, that game. It's really nice. It's very nice. But aye, the performance was just the goals, the quality of the goals, and the fact. The one thing that I mentioned to you was the mental strength of Celtic. We just rebound instantly and hit back. That guy scored an absolutely amazing goal yesterday. It's open for debate whether or not De Vries could have done better, and the fact that De Vries has been doing shite lately, a lot of people are on his case.
Aye. I don't think anyone in the fucking stadium expected that guy to shoot from there.
No. It's funny, like, I was watching, I'd noticed that wee guy during the game. Before that, I was like, he's actually not fucking bad. Well, did you see, he Cruyff turned Scott Brown and sent him the opposite direction, and then just rattles it. And it wasn't a fluke or anything like that. He deliberately tried to score.
Yeah.
So, I don't know, De Vries is the only one that gets the question marks. I mean, Tom Rogic has been fucking great for Celtic. His overall record at Celtic, as it stands, is 66 appearances, 40 starts, 16 goals, 10 assists. That's an amazing return for a guy who was like completely written off. He was gone in a lot of Celtic.
He seems so mobile at the moment as well.
Yeah,
like, it's just adding so much to his game. I mean, the potential is always there. Brendan Rodgers is getting that out of him. That first half, that first 25 minutes, Kilmarnock must have been saying, fucking give a rest, because Celtic were moving the ball so quickly. I know what Rodgers said afterwards that he wants us to move the ball faster, but that first 20 minutes we were blowing them away. And that was something that happened under Liverpool as well. Liverpool that season were famous for fucking going 1-2 up within the first 10-20 minutes.
Yeah.
And that seems to be what Rodgers is trying to get us to do as well.
I seen that. I watched Match of the Day last night, and you could see. I know it's Klopp and it's different, but they analysed how Liverpool hunt in packs, and it's something Celtic's desire to win the ball back and the hunger that they have to control the game is wild. Rogic, while we're talking about Rogic, just to finish, like I think Rodgers just said, mate, take a shot anytime, anywhere you want, just hit a dig. It doesn't really matter, and he's just been rattling. But it has to be said, he has the best feet in Scotland. But his close ball control is, he's a big, tall, gangly guy as well. You wouldn't really expect it from him, but he was very good. What do you think about Simunovic? What did you think about his game?
I mean, obviously, he never got tested much in a defensive aspect, but he's got such a fucking solid defensive frame about him. He's got the broad shoulders. He looks as if he's not going to get messed about. Coming forward, they did like that Virgil van Dijk run at one point, where he just went through the whole team. And you can't underestimate how quickly that gets you up the park. You know what I mean? Because we basically turned like defence, like 18-yard box defence into 18-yard box attack within seconds.
No, I don't. I think Tourie's done that a couple of times. Well, Van Dijk used to do it. I just don't. I think what happens is maybe the opposition don't expect the defender to do anything but pass it sideways, so they sort of park. There's like an opening, and then he has the brains to just stride up the pitch. Lustig does it on occasion as well. You see Lustig galloping forward with the ball when he's playing centrally. But it was a good game to play Jozo. I thought Gamboa would have been in for these reasons, because Kilmarnock weren't that great. It was at home, and it was more or less a given we were going to win, and it would have been good for the confidence. Now, putting Gamboa in at right back against Barcelona in your first game of the season after not really playing football for a long, long time was probably a mistake. I thought he would have played yesterday.
I think my thinking about that was the fact that we were going 5 at the back against Barcelona, so you maybe wanted his fullbacks to be a little bit attacking because we've already got 5 players in there. I think what this means is that Lustig is going to be playing against Manchester City, and we're going to be playing 4 at the back. I think it's going to be a 4-5-1 with Lustig at the right back to make the defence a little bit more defensive, but only 4 of them.
Let me paint a picture for you. Ready?
Yeah.
Michael Lustig versus Raheem Sterling.
That's fine, man. Really.
Fuck, right? Did you see Sterling's goal yesterday?
Fuck him, man. Fuck him.
Did you see Sterling's goal?
Nah.
Jesus Christ. Anyway. So,
but De Bruyne's out. So,
I was reading that he might be out. What do you think? Man of the match. I know it's quite difficult to choose a man of the match, but who would you go with yesterday?
Kieran Tierney.
Best
performance.
Running out of things to say. Like, he is Celtic.
Aye.
He is every one of us out there in that pitch.
When he's getting into that final third as well, he's almost he almost has the full ability of a winger to either like dummy his man and get a cross in, or to cut inside. He's got the defensive ability of a left back, and he's getting the attacking ability of a left winger. It's fucking phenomenal, man.
Yeah. And the variety of crosses that he puts in as well, like his ball for Dembele, the low and hard, direct right to Dembele's feet, and Dembele's second goal, the one I'm talking about now, nobody saves that.
No.
That was into the roof of the net, and we should point out the first goal as well was very good. So it was a goal from your left back, assist from your left back, assist from your right back, because Lustig, that was an amazing ball. I'm sceptical whether Lustig actually meant that pass. Like, I'm like, really? I hit and hope, but it was spot on, and Dembele is just.
And speaking of Tierney's delivery, that you remember the one that he crossed in the second half that Dembele just headed just over? It hit
it would have been the perfect hat-trick as well.
Aye, that was Tierney cross from the left wing as well.
Yeah. One thing that I noticed on Kerrydale Street was someone actually compared Rodgers and Venglos together.
Is that right?
For being like tactically astute. You know, one thing Rodgers is not scared to do, he doesn't fuck about with tactics. If it's not working, he'll change it. If it's not working, he'll change it. The formation changes several times during the game, which is not something that we've seen under. We never seen it really under Dyler at all.
No.
I don't really recall it ever being as drastic as this under Lennon. But it makes sense. If something's not working, do something about it. You know what I mean?
It used to be with Celtic that our tactical change was putting one of our centre backs up front in the last 5 minutes. I mean, that used to be the extent of it. But one thing also,
Virgil van Dijk up front, just turn him up,
or Vargas back in the day as well.
Yeah.
But one thing yesterday, I thought, again, you need to talk about the opposition we were playing, but fucking Near Breton had one of his best games in a while as well. He seemed to be all over the park, closing people down, making tackles, and Scott Brown, the three in the midfield were really good, and we're going to need them to be that way on Wednesday night as well. I
mean, Scott Brown is a completely different player. Between him and Forrest last season, I was like, no, they need to go. They have to. Like, they're not. They have to be dropped at the very least. Forrest has not kicked his ass for a long time anyway. Now Rogic, now Forest has been the stats. I've got some stats here. I want to thank Opta Celtic for this. James Forrest at Celtic last season, 33 games, 2 goals, 2 assists. So far this season, 14 games, 5 goals and 4 assists.
Right. And he's tracking back. Like, see, at the beginning of this season, I thought the only getting a main shining light at the beginning of this season was Patrick Roberts.
Yeah.
And now Forrest is doing so much defensively. He's doing so much going forward as well. And couple that with the fact that Patrick Roberts has taken a really long time to kind of hit his groove again. I just can't see how Forrest is going to get put out of the team.
Well, in Roberts' defence yesterday, everyone was pretty very good. Well, most people in the pitch yesterday were really good, and I think Roberts' contribution yesterday was decent. Had that been a game where we won maybe 2-0 or 3-0 or 2-1 or 3-1, his performance would have been noted more. But he skinned a few players for absolute fun yesterday. Like, he breezed past some of their players with no fucking problems whatsoever. So, Roberts is fine. He's not our player, remember? Like, that's why Forrest probably gets priority given the form he's in. But not only that, but Forrest is owned by Peter Lawwell. He's got like a little name tag and all that. But yeah, yesterday was just great. The mentality of the players, the bounce back, the rebound rapid after that goal. It was like, within 5 minutes, within 10 minutes we scored 2.
Aye.
And it was just like, and you could see like they just picked the ball up straight up, put it back in the spot, like, let's go.
Aye. It was this. On paper we were having a bit of a tricky spell, but if you actually watch the games, then Barcelona was the only fucking disaster. Like, Inverness Cali wasn't a disaster. That's a hard place to go. We dominated them. Alloa, they just sat back for the whole game. On paper, it looked as if we were having a shaky spell. I don't think we actually were, though.
If you call a shaky spell a loss to the best team on the planet away, a 2 each, a draw at one of the most difficult away games in Scotland, and a 2-0 at home against a plucky, stubborn, pretty decent Alloa side, then fair enough, I'll take that.
And
it's not that bad.
You have to remember with Alloa that they're always cheating as well.
I know. I was thinking that.
You're against 12 men from the start. So.
Exactly. I know the fucking referee and this and that and the next thing. But yeah, yesterday was amazing. Like, Scott Brown's a different player. He's so positive. Like, he's just. I think Brendan just said to him, look, just go and play. Just go and enjoy yourself. Have the freedom. Not do what you like, but be more advanced. Do not worry about tracking back so much. Players behind you will pick up. Don't worry about that.
One thing that the kind of cliche in football is it's a good problem to have when you have 2 players going for the win position. But the thing about these good problems is they're actually problems as well. So, we have Dembele, must be thinking of himself as maybe the number 1 striker at this point. We've got Lee Griffiths coming back, who obviously thinks of himself as the number 1 striker. How do you think we keep both of these players happy?
I think something that Rodgers has mentioned, I saw in the press that he says that Dembele has still got a lot of improvements to make. There's a long way to go with him, which is kind of what you expect. He has a great game, and the manager maybe sort of levels him a little bit, which you expect. When Griffiths came on yesterday, he was starving for a goal. He was absolutely hungry as fuck. Oh, he was all over the pitch, and what an impact he made when he came on, by the way, it has to be said. He made a big impact in the game, and he's just, to have 2 amazing strikers, it's not something we've had for a long time. We have 2 strikers who are both excellent for completely different reasons. It's one of the best times in a long time to be a Tim. Like, I know we're saying this prior to hosting Man City, and they've won like 10 or 11 in a row in the league, and they're flying. But yeah, it's just an amazing time to be a Celtic fan. And if you think about 5 months ago where we were to where we are now, you know.
Yeah. So what's your team for Wednesday?
Oh, here we go. Goalkeeper's the big question mark. I would just go with Gordon. Right. Gordon seems to be safer. 19. De Vries has had 19 shots and he's conceded 12. So, yes. Come on, man, that's terrible. It's a terrible record. Gordon, Tierney, Toure, Sviatchenko, Lustig. Midfield is going to need to be Brown, Beaton, Forrest, Sinclair. I don't know who else.
Sam.
Maybe
Sam.
Rogic. don't know if he's the kind of player for this game. I don't know. I would maybe consider playing. I don't know. This is the problem we have. We don't have another guy to sit in there and do that job that Beaton is supposed to do most of the time. But I don't know. Maybe McGregor. Maybe I wouldn't go with McGregor. Maybe Armstrong. I don't believe I'm even saying that, but he seems to be an alternative. And then up front, it's going to have to be Dembele.
That would be my team exactly, but I think Rogic for me has to be a definite, because we're going to need somebody that can put the foot in the ball. We're going to need somebody, if we want to try and get something from this game, that's going to be able to create. If we can rely on Sinclair and Forrest to be working hard in the wing positions, then we can rely on, maybe we can give Rogic a bit of a kind of he is working hard, he is pressing, but maybe we can say to him, look, you don't need to fucking work your ass off that much, because we've got everyone else doing it.
Yeah.
But we need. I feel as if when we get the ball, we saw it against Barcelona. We need to have someone when we get the ball that's going to give us a fucking breather and is going to give us a chance to kind of come out. And I think Rogic can do that. I think he can spray the ball wide. He can do everything in there, as long as we can get Beaton and Brown performing like they did yesterday, working their fucking asses off. And I think we can afford to have Rogic in there. I
mean, just to talk about Rogic, one more thing. It's now his fitness issues seem to be finished. Like, he seems to be fully fit, match fit, lasting 90 minutes again yesterday. He seems to be the player that some people hoped he would have been 2 years ago when we signed him. But I mean, I would give Rogic. I would put him in there. We don't really have anyone else. And as you say, he can hold the ball and he can shoot from distance. I mean, shoot from distance, like 25 shots or something alone. And goal, yes. Not even in goal. Some of them are still orbiting around the fucking earth as we fucking record. But so Man City, it is what it is. Like, it'll be good to see David Silva, Aguero, Sterling, Guardiola. You know, these are the highest bracket of players on the planet. So it's good to be in with the big boys again. I just hope that, you know, if we do lose, we put in a better performance than we do in Barcelona. I think we would have learned from Barcelona. I've learned from going to Barcelona to never go back to fucking Barcelona, because when you're up in that fucking the top tier, it's just crap.
Yeah, that I've got pictures from that time I was at the David Marshall game, and you can't even see in my picture. You can't even see the Barcelona players because it blended in too much of the pitch. That's how far away you are.
Was it on a? Did you take it on a phone?
No, it was at that time. I think it was just a fucking normal camera type thing.
I thought you'd taken it on your Nokia 3210 or something like that. So I still even got a camera, mate. But it's just, again, mixing it with the big boys is kind of.
I wouldn't even call Man City the big boys. I would just call them the rich boys.
Well, they are smashing teams. They're top front to back, like absolutely fucking riddled with world class players. And they've got, who's the goalkeeper they've got in just now? Is it Claudio Bravo? Claudio Bravo, and you've got we're up against it, but I'm looking forward to the game. I'm excited. It's good to see Celtic in the Champions League, and plus it's the first real Champions League game we've had in a long time at Celtic Park, so there's that.
It reminds me of what I'm about to say. It reminds me of what my coach of Barhead Boys Club said to me when after our first game we get beat 14-0 or something. He says, it'll be better next week and we get beat 15-0. But I've got a feeling it's not going to be as bad as the last time. I think if we do lose, I think it's only going to be 1 or 2. But I do actually have hope. I'm always positive before games, but I've got hope that we can get something, a draw. This is going to be. This is our second easiest game, I think. You know what I mean?
Was Doris Drevis in goals for St Luke's? Was he the goalkeeper for that team?
No, it was Carol Muggleton.
Okay, that explains the damage. But yeah, it's good time to be a Celtic fan. Let's just say that.
So what? You mentioned the Barcelona briefly there. What was your experience of it? What did you think? Not the game, but like the actual away trip.
I was in Salou for a couple of days beforehand, so I just took the train up and I went to Plaza Catalunya, where all the Celtic fans were. It was good. Everyone's just drinking in the street, but it's bang in the centre of Barcelona, so finding an off licence was difficult, and because of the Celtic fans had been there all day, the bevy they were selling was now warm because they were restocking and stocking. So I had a few bevies before it with the fans, loads of good songs and this, that and the next thing. No trouble whatsoever, no police were there, everyone's smiling, no hassle whatsoever. Get to the stadium, bit of a pain in the arse, multiple ticket checks, like maybe 5 times I got my ticket checked in the way in and the way in and the way in. And I don't, like, you know, Celtic fans aren't famous for like causing trouble. They're not. It's not like that. And obviously, as you know, the top tier is, but at the stadium, the new camp's like almost 100,000. It holds almost 100,000 people. That's more than the city that I live in, which is very close to Madrid. Like that's more than the city I live in. So, you have to walk up. There's no stairs or there's no elevators. It's just ramps, ramps, and then the police presence wasn't very nice. There was a lot of police present. A lot. I know.
Barcelona, and it's not as if it's.
It's what I'm saying, and like there was security everywhere. You weren't allowed to take water to your seat. You could buy water in the stadium, but you weren't allowed to take water or food or anything to your seat. And because you're at the top fucking tier, the atmosphere just—it's a bowl. You're at the edge of the bowl. The atmosphere just sort of filters up the way. Yeah. It was, to be honest, man. Like, it just wasn't a very good experience. Result aside, it just wasn't a very good experience. The fans tried their best to get an atmosphere going, and it was good. It was quite busy. I mean, there was a guy that waited right behind me. He weighted down the guy behind me. The guy behind me weighted down another guy's leg. And then the guy fell asleep. I wonder if he's listening. The guy fell asleep for the entire game. And Celtic have a security guy that travel with them and look after the supporters. The Barca guys were trying to pop him out, and the guy had no idea. The drunken guy had no idea what was going on, but the Celtic guy intervened and said, no, just leave him. He needs to stay. But it was just horrible. The atmosphere, that the police were too heavy-handed. You weren't allowed to drink water. The security were just fucking grassing bastards. Anything out of order. I seen guys with wee boys, 4 and 5 year olds, decked out in full kit. Like we Celtic supporters with their dad and their parents being told you're not allowed to take water, and the guy's like, why? He's 4 years old. Why is he not allowed to have water? And then just arguments back and forth.
Why wasn't he allowed to have water?
They could health and safety. I was like, surely it's health and safety not allowing water into the stadium to drink during a match. It's not. I mean, it wasn't cold, but it was relatively warm in that part of the world at that time. So, it's just a really sour experience, and just paying money to be subjected to that heavy-handed policing. It's just not something I want to experience again. So
that's a really kind of contrasting experience with the police from when I was there, because when I was there was guys like fucking crawling. When we were pushing into through the turnstiles, there were Celtic fans crawling at our feet as we went in.
Well, that explains. Maybe it was your fault then that I was subjected to so much fucking your North Korea style retina scanning and all that sort of shit. It was really heavy-handed. It wasn't good. And obviously the 7 goals, and then I celebrated the penalty like we'd fucking won the game. Like when we got the penalty, I was like, yes, but it is what it is. And then that was tail between my legs, back up the road.
Oh well. The next game will be better, as my coach said. So I just wanted to kind of briefly touch on some German football while we're here. I've been away for obviously about 10 days, so I wasn't seeing much, but just kind of looking at Schalke. This guy, Marcus Weinzierl, was always been all like fucking hipster football when we were getting rid of Dylan, and I was like, we should bring in Marcus Weinzierl, because he had 4 years at Augsburg and he was doing like overachieving with them. So I thought I was being a fucking smart ass saying, bring in this 41-year-old German. He took over at Schalke pre-season. And obviously Schalke are one of the biggest teams in Germany, always near the top. So far this season they've gone 4 games without a win, 4 games without a draw, 4 back-to-back defeats, and are sitting 18th in the league with 0 points. And this is a team that have got players like fucking Hovedis, who's a German international, obviously. They've got that guy from Ukraine, I can never pronounce his name. It's
Knock-the-Anchor.
That's the one, aye. They've got Max Meyer, the young German. They've got Huntelaar up front. And he's basically led them to their worst start in many a year. So it shows you how much I know about fucking up-and-coming managers. So, Schalke, 0 points out of 4. Not doing so much better with Werder Bremen, who just got their first win, actually. So
it's the same sort of story here in Spain. The biggest talking points is not obviously like Las Palmas, as we spoke about previously. It was Valencia went the first 4 games with no wins, which has not happened for a long, long time. And tie that in with the debacle of Gary Neville from last season. They appointed Gary Neville's assistant. His name is Paco Ayestaran, and it's just obvious he was going to get sacked. So they went 4 games and they lost 4 games in a row. They sacked Ayestaran on the Wednesday, and then they played Alaves on Thursday, and then got their first win. So the guy that's actually come in is called Voro. He's a caretaker. Like, he's literally like match day caretaker. He looks after the stadium. I don't think he's like a janitor. He's not like that. He's not like a fucking Janny, but he's a guy that will look after certain people in the stadium, make sure they're right. But every time a manager gets sacked, which happens a lot in Valencia, he steps in and takes over. That was his 4th time being caretaker manager, and he never wants the job. His name's Voro.
He doesn't Carver of Valencia.
He's the John Carver of Valencia. He doesn't want the job at all. He just wants to keep the job that he does. He loves Valencia and this and the next thing. But it's really big news because Valencia are 3rd bottom of the league, and they are the 4th biggest club in Spain. They're a big city. The city's probably about the size of Glasgow. They have all their own newspapers, their own polls, their own fucking TV, everything. And it's a big talking point here in Spain. So I think they're trying to get in Marcelinho, who was the manager of Villarreal last season, and he done very well, but there was a big, massive fallout with Villarreal and him. And because, just to finish, the reason that he's not allowed to take over Valencia is because he started the season as manager of Villarreal, even though they released him thereafter. He didn't even do, I don't think he took charge of a single pre-season match or nothing. He was only in charge with them on paper. Mm-hmm. And the La Liga rules state if you start the season in charge of another club, you're not allowed to take charge of another club.
Is that right?
Aye, so Valencia are trying to argue. I think there's talk about they're going to go for Villas Boas and this, that, and the next thing. But it's interesting because Valencia are a team that you kind of associate them. You associate them. They've got a lot of money. They got a lot of money from the sales. They sold some players to Arsenal and a couple of other players, but they brought in decent players. They brought in Nani and they brought in Garay from St. Petersburg, it's a bit of a talking point this season in Valencia, and the chances of them going down are pretty high at this stage of the game. They're not doing very well. In fact, they're doing very shite. So there you go.
Tomorrow, haven't they? So
yeah.
maybe they'll get some points there. I've been trying to make a Mask of Voro joke for the last 5 minutes, and I've got fuck all. So just pretend that I made a good Mask of Voro. The
Mask of Voro. Right, I think that calls it a day on History Boys Abroad, and you're thinking up shite jokes anyway, so I think that calls it a day. But where can people find us?
On iTunes, Spreaker, Stitcher, these types of places. Next week we're probably going to record on Saturday afternoon after the Celtic Dundee game. So look out for us on your iTunes and whatever on Saturday afternoon at some point. Yeah. And boys, what's the Twitter handle? It's at Boys Abroad, obviously with Bhoys. And thanks for Celtic Underground that gave us a little nod this week. So
yeah, and there was a poll on Twitter regarding the Celtic podcast to listen to, and Celtic Binds had mentioned us, and there was lots of. I mean, I need to ask, this Celtic must have one of the largest amounts of podcasts for the club. Mm-hmm. There's so many podcasts for the club. You've got all the Hail Media guys. There must be about 10 on there. Then you've got the 20-minute Tims. Then you've got the Homeboys, the By the Minute Celtic guys. Over and over. There's so many. It's amazing. It's and it seems to be growing all the time, which is great. And I listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to all of them. So yeah. So cheers for the mentions and whatnot. And we're almost at 500 followers on Twitter, which is not bad considering it's only been a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So, join us next week when we're going to talk about something else.
I'm the singer in the band. You're the loser. I won't dismiss you out of hand. You've got a beautiful faith, it would take you places. You kept running, you've got money, you've got fame. Every morning I see your picture from the train. Now you're an actress, so says your resume. You may have caught, you couldn't hide your way out of a paper bag. lucky. You ain't talking to me now, little Miss Plucky. Lock your eyebrows for the crowd, get on the airplane. You give me stomach pain, I wish that you were here. We would have had a lot to talk about. You had a deal then, we nearly signed it with a blood and understanding. I thought that you would keep your word, I'm disappointed. I'm aggravated, it's a fault I have, I know. When things don't go my way, I have to blow up in the face of my rivals. I scream and run, I make quite an arrival. The men are surprised by the language. They act so discreet, they are hypocrites, so fuck them too. Dear, if I could have a second skin, I'd probably dress up in you. You're a star now. I'm fixing people's nails, I'm knitting jumpers. I'm working after hours, I've got a boyfriend. I've got a feeling that he's seeing someone else. He always had a thing for you as well. Blow in the face of my rivals, I swear and run, I make quite an arrival. The men are surprised by the language. They act so discreet, they are hypocrites, forget them. So fuck them too.